Okay, so in this video I'm doing a bit of an experiment to make a book safe, basically a hiding place. And I'm trying out a bunch of stuff and just sort of seeing what happens. So I decided to use a brass drill, basically a brass tube. And the only thing I had was a bullet cartridge, so I'm just going to cut that down, put a bevel on the inside. So I'm chucking it up here. I'm basically using tape and putting a mark on it, and then a hacksaw blade just to score it so that the saw doesn't wander around, and then a proper saw to cut it off. And after this I'm pretty much just tidying it up, a bit of beveling and then some 400 grit sandpaper. And this is pretty much all an experiment. This is a fired cartridge, obviously, you don't go doing stuff with live cartridges. I'm just getting rid of the primer so I can poke a wire through to clear paper from it. And this is the drill that I'm going to be using for drilling through the book. And I'm just putting a 30-degree bevel on the inside. And with this I'm just making myself a jig so that I can put the holes pretty much into the corners of where I'm going to cut out in the book. I chose this book pretty much purely for the colour. I just like the orange book. But I'm not doing any edge gluing or anything like that. I'm pretty much just clamping it and drilling it. So I've cut that piece of paper to the size that I want to cut out, and then I'm just using that jig to cut through 15-20 pages. It's just so that I have a place for the drill to go through cleanly without having to brace it too badly. And that's clearing out the cartridge. But basically just drilling the whole way through. And if I used a regular blade it wouldn't cut straight down, and so I'm using a chisel edge. And when I'm using the power tools you can kind of get gunk in between the pages or mangled pages. So I'm trying to cut this as cleanly as possible. Again, I'm cutting down 15-20 pages just to give myself a straight edge when I go into it with a power tool. This was a bit of an experiment. Didn't work quite as well as it could have, but So here I'm just tidying up all of the edges and gluing the back page on. Don't know how necessary that is, but it pleased me. And gluing it all up and then clamping it tightly, basically to compress the glue in between the pages. And from here I'm building basically a box into it. I'm going to come back and lay another page over top and cut through just to hide all of the edges. And I'm not being shy with glue at any stage in this. It's one of those builds where you can't really have too much glue. But that dries off, and then I make another box basically. I'm going to be felt lining this with adhesive felt. So that dries outside of it, and then I'm gluing down the extra page over top. I show myself stacking books on top of it. I actually wound up clamping it again. And a bunch of books. And then I just give myself some guidelines to cut through because I don't really want to go past the edges of that. And trim it all down. This is pretty much to hide the manky edges that I created as I did it. Pretty much all of this is just an experiment. I just wanted to see what would happen. Some things worked well, some things not so well, but I've learned a few things that I can use for other projects, and that's pretty much the point of these experiments. But that gets cleaned off, and then tidy that up a bit. It's cleaning every stage of the way, and then I'm just setting up the felt for the edges of that box stretcher. And black pen hides a lot of mistakes, and that just gets trimmed down and sort of fitted in there. As I said, all of this is pretty much just an experiment, so I'm using the syringe just to put very controlled amounts of glue in. I don't want to have spills going around the edges. Then that gets laid into place. Something you're not seeing is everything you're seeing here I show it once, but I probably did it 10 or 15 times. And then tuck the felt away, cleaning every stage of the way. And it pretty much leaves me with what looks and feels and smells like a normal book, but it has a nice little hidden felt compartment in it. I really do like the colour of that book. So yeah, quite happy with that. That's given me some ideas. I kind of wanted to do a maths book abacus. In fact, I want to make an abacus. I might even make several. And the other idea I had was basically embedding electronics like capacitive touch pads. And yeah, this start to finish was pretty much just a series of experiments. I wanted to see what would happen with the materials as I tried different things. And it actually turned out I'm quite happy with the way that things turned out, but I did make a decision that I would be showing it even if it all totally went wrong. And strangely enough it didn't, seeing as I went into it with that mindset.